8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farrow.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case.
Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. Joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. It's 4 o'clock. I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Counter-terrorism police say the firebombing of an immigration processing centre in Dover was motivated by an extreme right-wing terrorist ideology. Officers say evidence, including digital media devices, have been recovered during their investigation. Andrew Leake from High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire is believed to have thrown up to 3 incendiary devices at the Dover Immigration Centre last weekend. There were no major injuries in the attack. The 66-year-old was later found dead by police at a nearby petrol station. GB News has learned that detainees armed with various weapons have caused a disturbance during a power cut at an immigration centre in London. The Home Office says the incident happened in the early hours of this morning at Harmondsworth Immigration Removal Centre near Heathrow Airport. No one was injured and authorities remain at the scene. There are currently more than 600 immigrants at Harmondsworth being processed for removal from the United Kingdom. The United Nations chief says the world is doomed unless a historic pact is signed between rich and poor countries. Antonio Guterres' warning comes ahead of the COP27 summit next week. Wealthy nations have already promised to fund almost £88 billion a year to help poor nations fund measures to tackle climate change. This was originally meant to start in 2020, however, it's now not expected to happen until 2023. Well, this comes as Eastern Australia deals with a 4th flooding crisis this year. People in New South Wales have been evacuated from their homes ahead of an expected peak in floodwaters. Flooding has left thousands of people homeless and agricultural businesses in tatters. Australia and the Pacific nations have announced that they'll launch a bid to co-host the 2026 UN Climate Summit.
We're back at the international table. Unlike recent COPs where Australia was seen as part of the group which actually was working to stop progress, to get in the way of progress, Australia will be a willing and active participant in these discussions.
A series of planned rail strikes due to start today are not going ahead. They've been called off, but the government is warning there'll still be significant disruption over the next few days. RMT members were due to walk out for 3 days, but the union says it secured a pay offer and is now entering intensive talks. However, former Assistant General Secretary at the RMT, Steve Headley, says members are furious as they had no say in whether or not to call off this industrial action.
We're in a situation where the strike's been called off and the members don't know why. And the explanations being given at the minute don't make sense. Intensive negotiations, well, what were they doing before? If there's a deal on the table, let the members have a look at it. The members will soon say yes or no.
Sinn Féin's leader says if an executive in Northern Ireland cannot be restored, a joint authority between the British and Irish governments should be Plan B. Mary Lou MacDonald made the comments ahead of her keynote speech at her party's conference this evening. The country has been without a functioning executive since February as the DUP continues to boycott the Assembly over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Chair of the Northern Ireland Conservatives, Matthew Robinson, told us a solution has to be found.
We either need a restoration of the devolved government, or we need some form of direct rule from Westminster. We deserve proper governance in Northern Ireland. We have a collapsing healthcare system here. I mean, we are in dire straits in terms of waiting times. We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis as well, just like the rest of the UK. We need proper governance.
The French far-right party National Rally has elected a new leader to take over from Marine Le Pen. 27-year-old Jordan Bardella will replace her, marking the first time in the party's 50-year history where it's not been led by a member of the Le Pen family. Ms Le Pen says she'll now focus on leading the party's group in Parliament after it took 89 seats in the National Assembly earlier this year. Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, has criticised activists who he says have pressured major advertisers to stop spending on the platform. The world's richest man defended his decision to sack around half of the company's workforce, saying all staff who'd been laid off were offered 3 months redundancy pay. And amid concerns over disinformation on the site, Musk is adamant the company's commitment to content moderation has not been compromised. OK, you're watching GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Nana Akua.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, this made me laugh this week. Ian Hislop grilling Gary Neville, who was hosting Have I Got News For You on the BBC. Now, you would think that they would realise that he probably isn't the best person to be hosting this, what with the World Cup coming up and the fact that he has agreed to be a pundit for the Qatari state broadcaster beIN Sports, although the BBC are going themselves. Have a listen.
Either highlight the issues and challenges in these countries and speak about them, or you basically don't say anything, you stay back home and don't go. And I've always said we should challenge them.
There's another option. You stay at home and highlight the abuses. You don't have to go and take the Qataris' money.
Exactly. I mean, code for I'm taking the money. The same Gary Neville, who last month defended his former Man U teammate David Beckham, who many had criticised for accepting a £10 million deal to be a paid ambassador for Qatar. Now, Beckham had already starred in TV commercials promoting it, but then, of course, he queued to see the Queen, so a lot of people let him off the hook. Honestly, Gary Neville and his mate Lineker apparently highlighting the plight of human rights abuses by going to commentate. Come on. I think there was maybe one main stadium in Qatar when it won the bid to host the event. Suddenly they had to build a load more, and we all know how they went along doing that. A load of human rights abuses in the form of migrant and slave labour, where hundreds died. It's already highlighted. Why do we need them to go there and do it for us? How can they even feel comfortable sitting in the stadiums, let alone making money on the back of them? Finally, though, More people in football are speaking up against the World Cup being held in Qatar and questioning FIFA as to why it was even considered as a location when problems like inhospitable climates and things that, for example, is going to be held instead of during the summer. They've moved it now because it'd be too hot. Also, its laws on same-sex relationships were all apparent at the very start of this. Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool manager, admitted that he has little appetite to watch the World Cup after being left cold by the tournament's timing and the issues around it. He did, however, make it clear that players and managers of the 32 nations should not have to face a barrage of questions on politics when they are there for football. It doesn't work like that, sadly. Forget the comedy duo, the two Ronnies. We've got the two Garys for entertainment, Gary Lineker and Gary Neville, although these two aren't particularly funny. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Now, critics have slammed the Home Office, dubbing it dysfunctional, with many complaining about the bureaucracy within the department. Now, this all comes as nearly 40,000 migrants have crossed the Channel alone this year, as reports suggest that only 50% of asylum claims are genuine and that only 4% of claims last year were processed. So has the Home Office lost control? Then at 4:50, it's Royal Roundup time. Royal biographer Angela Levin will be in the studio with an update on the latest goings-on. On the menu, according to reports, the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, is a step closer to relaunching her lifestyle blog, The Tig, as she seeks to trademark the name. Then coming up at 5, in Difficult Conversations, it's National Diabetes Awareness Month. I'll be speaking to music legend Ronald Isley from the R&B global sensation, the Isley Brothers. Now, Ronald tragically lost his brother and bass player Marvin, who suffered with diabetes for 20 years and died as a result of complications associated with it at just age 56. Now, Marvin famously told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in 2001, if I would have listened, if I would have understood diabetes like I understood music, maybe these things wouldn't have happened. Now, Ronald Isley will be live at 5. We'll also get a sneaky preview of his new track featuring Beyoncé. That's all coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. Welcome. Nice to see you back, Father, on the show.
Thank you. Always good to be here.
Did you have a nice birthday?
I did. It was lovely, thank you. Very calm and quiet. I spent it with my nieces.
Oh, that's lovely. How old are you, 21?
Yes, I am. Perpetually 21.
Exactly. That's what I thought. Well, lovely to have you back. And Lizzie, lovely to see you. I love the sparkly bits going on there.
Yes,
as well.
it's rather warm in the studio today. I'm in my tweed suit.
In your tweed,
In my tweed, yes.
It's lovely, though.
Thank you, Father.
Now, how do you feel about the two Garys?
Oh, the two Garys, I love that. Yeah, they are the two Ronnies. I mean, everyone actually doesn't agree with them at all, and it's not the first time they've been offside, let me tell you.
Well, very good.
But I think actually it was quite shameful. I mean, why, number one, did Gary Neville go on that show? He knew they were going to grill him. He knew, and what, you know, he's saying such a do-gooder. He's going out there to show the causes and stick up for the gay community and the workforce. I mean, oh, please shut up, Gary. You're going there for the money. You're so hypocritical. And he doesn't need to go for the money because his actual worth is 25 million, as is Gary Lineker's 35 million. Big bucks. They don't have to go, and they'd make more of a stance if they just didn't go.
Yeah, of course.
And people would respect them more.
Of course, but would you go then if they offered you money?
I've been asked to go.
Yeah.
I've been asked. I've been to every World Cup. I've said no. Under no circumstances would I go.
Yeah, well, good on you. See, that's the thing. And it's a bit sort of like a Holly and Phyllis when they say, oh, we're going to queue up and see the Queen on your behalf, so that for those who couldn't, they're going on our behalf to sort of highlight the plight, or not even on our behalf, but to highlight the plight of the fact that the stadiums were built by migrants and all this thing and this. We already know about it. We don't need them to go and do that at all. Calvin, where do you stand on this?
What do men with money want? More money. That's the problem right here. I wish you could just be honest, though. Say, yeah, they offered me a lot of money, so I'm going. Just say that, and we'd all be like, OK, fair enough, we get it. At least we know what you're on about. But just say, oh, I'm going because I want to highlight the plight of the injustices, and I'll be there as a commentator. Like, first of all, you're not that smart, so you're not going to be able to weed your way into the commentary without it raising alarm bells with the Qatarians. But he's not going to be there to commentate, is he? Not in that fashion, not a political sense. He's going to be there for the sport.
But I think he's trying to get into the political arena. We've already
seen
Do you really?
Yes, I do. I do.
He should come on
talking
GBNews.
about the
invite him
high
on.
cost of living. He was talking about the high cost of living on his Instagram, head to toe in designer Burberry gear, even from hat to shoes and a bag. And then he's on the stage with Keir Starmer going on about, you know, banks, the bonuses. I was like, well, you know, let's do something with the football wages. I mean, why is he sitting on the stage with Keir Starmer? Believe me.
Well, this is interesting because Jurgen Klopp was saying that it's, you know, we're about the football, shouldn't be about politics and everything else. But then they're stepping into politics. Ex-footballers are saying this and having their opinion and using their Twitter feed to sort of spread whatever they want to say, their opinions on political matters. And at the end of the day, you can't really divide it like that because we all know the situation in Qatar. It's not great, and anybody who's kind of going and almost capitalising on it will be seen, sadly, in that light. It just doesn't look good.
But you know what? Credit to Ian Hislop, though, because everyone else was, like, treading on eggshells around and playing it soft. Ian just went in and said, no, you don't have to go. You could stay at home and not take the money. I think, yeah, that's quite right, too. Call him out on it.
I want to see that again.
Can we watch it again? But please, Gary Neville, just be honest. That's the thing. It's so hypocritical. The same as Gary Lineker.
Yeah, you're getting yourself written off of all these Christmas lists, aren't you?
Well, I am. I'm no longer going to be invited to the footballers' Christmas do, but I'm quite happy not to. I actually think I'm appalled with anyone that does go.
Well, I'm interested
including
to see.
David Beckham. And, yeah, you did queue for the Queen, but you just got a £10 million, another deal to promote the country.
But is he virtue signalling, though? He's not virtue signalling, is he? He's taken the money, but he hasn't said, I'm here to highlight the plight of this, that and the other. He's gone and taken the money. Now, I don't have an opinion either way because he is not standing on a soapbox saying, I'm here to do this and that. He's just taken the money.
Yeah, but it's still money over principle.
I don't think
it is.
I would never visit the country for lots of reasons, but people who do, that's on them. But I think Beckham's not as bad as Neville because at least he's not saying, yes, I'm there to highlight the plight. He's just taking the money and being quiet about it.
But it was really awful, actually. I was listening in the car on the way in, and there was someone that actually worked in that stadium and said the conditions were like a prison. It was so appalling. And the only thing that kept him going was the thought of seeing his children again. Wow. And then they weren't allowed to go and work elsewhere.
Well, is this somebody that you've met that actually did this?
It's someone that was there, yes. Yeah. And do you know what? It was so disturbing because I thought if Gary Neville, Gary Lineker, David Beckham listened to this man, would they really, go?
I think they would.
I think it's appalling.
I think they would, but only because they know about it. They know about it.
They're going for greed, and what's coming home? They say with the World Cup, their reputation in tatters.
It's also
well, they would say, but you're saying they go for greed. But as they've said, they're there to highlight the plight, so that's their defence for why they're going.
But footballers for the last 2 years have been taking a knee in opposition of slavery, and now we have modern slavery going on. And what are the footballers doing? They're going there to support it.
Exactly. What an empty gesture.
Yeah. I never did. I didn't support taking the knee. I can't see the point of it. If you are, there's no need for it. Just get off your knees, get on your feet, do something about it. They should be working with FIFA to do something, yes, and instead they're going to commentate there, and then they're going to highlight the plight whilst they're there.
But be honest, say, I'm going for the money.
Yeah, but they're taking slave money.
It's just disgusting, exactly, and it's appalling. And
although
I think they'll come back and they'll wish they hadn't gone. Their reputation will be really damaged.
I just want to point out that we do talk about modern slavery, but a lot of the things we're wearing, a lot of the things we're doing, all linked with modern slavery. So it's very difficult to actually escape it, and in a sense, we all end up being hypocrites in a sense.
But how they treat the gay community as well, and even some of the footballers' wives that are going out there have called me saying they're worried to show emotion. Where if their partner scores a goal, you're not allowed to show any. You're not allowed to hug and kiss in public. And you can't even take a selfie in case it's outside a national building.
But Nana, you raise an important point. But there are degrees of hypocrisy. We have to wear clothes, so we have to buy clothes. We can be more ethical in where we shop, but we don't have to go to Qatar to watch the football match. That's the difference.
Yeah, no, I take that on board, but like I say, he who is without sin cast the first stone. And sadly, it's none of us. There's rocks coming towards us as we speak. Well, listen, if you want to join in, make sure you get in touch with us. You know the coup. This is a GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, after the break, it is time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Now, a lot of critics have slammed it, dubbing it both dysfunctional and also bureaucratic. This comes as nearly 40,000 migrants have crossed over the British shores in the last year, and also the fact that very few of the actual applications have even been processed. Last year, it was around about 4%. So is the department fit for purpose? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can tweet at GBNews. I've got a poll up right now asking you that question. Is the Home Office fit for purpose? Cast your vote now, but first let's get an update with your weather.
We're looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking rather wet, actually, especially across the south and east. Drier, though, with clear spells elsewhere. Let's home in on what detail. So starting in the southwest, rather cloudy, outbreaks of light rain and drizzle across the east of the region. Drier further west, where we do have a few cloud breaks developing. A much cloudier picture further east, with patchy outbreaks of light rain and drizzle this evening, the rain turning much heavier around London. After a damp afternoon across Wales, conditions will improve as drier conditions arrive from the west, but cloud will linger across high ground. And crossing to the West Midlands, cloud and drizzly outbreaks clearing eastwards, clear spells during the evening, but a bit of mist and fog developing later. The cloud and rain already clearing in the northeast, with mostly dry conditions across the region, but lighter winds and a chance of mist and fog patches as well there. And then looking up to Scotland, then largely dry across Scotland. Some cloud lingering across high ground, clear spells and light winds. Temperatures dipping into single figures overnight, feeling rather chilly at last for November. And then looking at Northern Ireland, dry, clear spells, a few showers arriving across the very far northwest during the evening as winds pick up a little. So winds picking up then from the west as showers arrive, rain from the south and the east becoming heavier towards dawn, and that's how the weather's shaping up.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, it's 21 minutes after 4 o'clock. Welcome on board if you've just joined us. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. And don't forget, we're also on YouTube. You can stream us live and watch the show at your leisure. Right, let's see what you've been saying with regard to the first little monologue with regard to the two Garys, two Ronnies. Jamie says, I think that Gary Neville is a complete hypocrite. I was wondering what I was going to say after that. I was like, oh, I didn't see the next word. If he really stood for what he believed in, he wouldn't be going to Qatar. But then again, I'm not surprised. This is just another prime example of virtue signalling. Yeah, I know, it's everywhere, isn't it? Pete says, in my opinion, Gary Neville and David Beckham are champagne socialists, lefties of the worst kind. Ian says, I won't be watching the World Cup unless Wales get to the final and Jeremy Hunt drops taxes. Yeah, that's not going to happen, is it?
Not going to happen.
No, they've become New Labour. And Janine says, amen to that, Nana. You took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you very much, Janine. Lovely to have you on board this afternoon. Right, so now it is time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Critics have taken aim at large numbers of staff working from the Home Office. The constant bureaucracy in the Passport Office being in disarray. This all comes as 40,000 migrants have crossed the Channel this year, with the average asylum claim now taking around 480 days to process. Not to mention a backlog of 120,000 applications waiting to be handled. Furthermore, reports suggest the number of genuine claims made by asylum seekers is actually around 50%. However, certain figures in the Tory party, such as Skills Minister Andrew Jenkins, blames anti-British lawyers for their failure to fully implement the Rwanda asylum scheme, whilst others have pointed the finger at France as migrants are still coming over despite agreeing a deal worth £54 million to patrol the coasts. But the British public think otherwise, as the GBNews poll reveals that nearly 60% of the country think that the government has lost control of its borders. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? I'm joined now by Conservative councillor and former SPAD to the Minister for Immigration, Claire Pearsall. Claire, SPAD is a special advisor, just in case people are wondering, what did she just call her? Yes. Claire, nice to see you this afternoon. Now, first of all, the Home Office, it seems like a load of bureaucrats. OK, so you've obviously got the Home Secretary at the top, but who are the people in between? Who's the next big person? And there must be at least 4 people at the top. Who are they?
Well, from the political side, you have the Minister for Immigration, which was a cabinet position and then was demoted to a junior minister position and then is now back as a cabinet position. And you have the security minister also attending cabinet. You have the policing minister who doesn't. And then you have a minister for safeguarding who is normally one of the members of the House of Lords. So there are quite a lot of people. But I think in answer to your question, is it fit for purpose? No, I don't think it is. It is an enormous department. It looks after national security, it looks after borders, passports, policing, safeguarding of individuals, drugs policy, just to name a few. So for one person, the Home Secretary, to be in charge of all of that, you can never give everything your full attention. And I think over the past couple of decades, we've seen that it isn't fit for purpose and it doesn't work.
Well, you know what, though? I'm just sick and tired of seeing a lot of these staff as well were working from home. I know a lot of them are still working from home, and yet the jobs aren't being done. We've got a massive backlog. I don't understand why it's got so bad. Why has it got so bad?
I think it's probably a number of things. We've made some schemes available to Afghan resettlement and previously Syrian resettlement and more recently the Ukraine scheme. So you have an enormous amount of pressure on the same amount of staff to get these schemes up and running, to get individuals across borders with paperwork to this country. So if you're going to take those people away from the jobs that they were originally doing, you are going to end up in a real problem. You aren't having enough people then paying attention to backlogs in asylum claims, which should have been sorted, backlogs in passport applications and renewals, as we saw earlier this year. So I think there's an enormous amount of pressure on the staff there who are working quite hard. Yes, there may be some working from home, but in the majority, I've found that there just aren't enough people to carry out the jobs that they're required to do.
But it doesn't make any sense, though. There's loads of people there. It can't be... The system must be wrong. There's too many people, first of all, but they're not appearing to do the jobs properly. But yet you're saying that they are aren't enough people. It's one of the biggest departments, if not the biggest, and there's so many elements to it. Do you think that the other side of it is other people are blaming different facets of this? For example, Skills Minister Andrea Jenkins, she sort of said it's the lawyers that she's putting to blame who've stopped the Rwanda plan and things from happening, which means it's difficult for the Home Office actually to work because there's so many things against it, for example.
Well, I think when you come to lawyers, I mean, lawyers are the ones that are doing their job. The Home Office needs to present a policy properly and well thought out, well thought through, and all of the implications that, just laid out for all to see. And I think the biggest problem with Rwanda is that it was launched very quickly. They hadn't thought through any of the consequences, and you can just see that there were going to be legal challenges. So instead of taking a little bit longer and actually working out what those challenges were going to be and able to ameliorate them on the other side, they just put it out incredibly quickly. So I'm afraid that one was a political failing, and I'm not necessarily sure that's the fault of lefty lawyers.
OK, well, Claire, stay right there. I'm also joined now by the Director for the Centre of Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe. Stephen, your thoughts then? Looks like you're somewhere nice. It looks like some holiday destination. Are you on holiday somewhere? You're not even in this country, are you, Stephen?
I've been monitoring the American immigration issue, which dwarfs what's happening in the UK.
Right.
And I've just been invited for 2 days to the American Virgin Islands.
I knew it! Right, I spotted something nice. That looks lovely there, Steve.
A rarity on a break in what is really an issue of about global immigration problems. Look, I understand where Claire is coming from about the issues about what's happening in the Home Office. We know by the large-scale numbers that are coming across that everyone would think that the Home Office is failing. I don't actually necessarily believe it's the Home Office that's failing. What is actually happening is government and senior politicians who are not supporting the Home Secretaries. For example, Priti Patel could only dream of having Boris Johnson support her fully when he brought out the Rwanda policy. And the Rwanda policy did actually set out a whole load of legal scenarios of what the immigration industry would challenge them on. What you could also ask, and again I use the word dream, is Suella Braverman needs to have a dream-like team who are capable of pushing through all the legal issues against the immigration industry. And for that to happen, for that to really happen, it means that the Prime Minister needs to get fully behind her, take on those within the Home Office, including lawyers who are not willing, as I was a lawyer myself, as a barrister, willing to support the government in their policies and take on the issue really matters. And that is European Court of Human Rights, remove it from the agenda. Challenge the issues where we've got in the... What happens, Nana, is you say when you've got first initial decisions, only 15% of people who make asylum claims actually are successful based on the UN Convention. Almost 40% of all claims are actually those in discretion that we've given the Home Office to allow people to come. Remove that completely and they will never have a right to stay here.
It's interesting. Let's bring back Claire as well, because I want to talk to you both on this one. OK, so what about then, because I really hear what you're saying, Stephen, about the fact that literally the Prime Minister needs to get behind the Home Secretary and support her, because otherwise what happens is everyone drops on the back. For example, the word invasion was, they just literally like a dog with a bone, and then they chewed on it. I mean, Claire, surely this is part of the problem.
Well, there's always going to be part of the problem. You need to have your own party on side. And for that to happen, you need to lay out your policies clearly. You need to get your colleagues on side before you can even hope that any of your immigration plans will come to fruition. I mean, I saw that with the EU settlement scheme, which on the surface looked like it would go through quite easily. But the challenges that we had going through not only our own party, but opposition parties were enormous. And it took a lot of persuading of people that we were doing things for the right reasons and that we had thought this through. And the sort of legal grid that you get was fraught with potholes of danger all over it. I mean, it is enormous, but you have to work with the parliamentary party. And it is very difficult at the moment when it is so divided. So I think there needs to be an awful lot of outreach coming from the Home Secretary and her team to individual members of Parliament.
So you would say that it's more the parties themselves and the leaders, the top of the party, who are actually their own worst enemy, and that the Home Office isn't actually that bad. And that, I mean, would you echo that sentiment, Steve?
Well, look, I've worked with many people in the Home Office. I talk to them and I discuss it because obviously when you're doing the research, you have to involve yourself with people who are trying really, really hard to work not only with their colleagues within the own department, but for example, those in France to try and monitor and prevent those from coming across. And one of the biggest issues that you always find is when I'm talking to border force agencies, they, for example, in Albania, they say we are actually removing people and putting them back onto ferries immediately, but we never get that in the news. You also have people desperately trying hard to actually get policies through, as Claire was when she was involved in government at that time, to actually get those policies through. And what happens is you've got a whole host of Conservative MPs who are very liberal on immigration, think it's fantastic to have as many coming in as possible because they support the Treasury's view that GDP is brilliant, not GNP per capita, which is negative for the poorest people in this country. And therefore, they're also concerned and scared of being looked bad when they go to their dinner parties because they're seen as the nasty Tories again. The reality is people voted for Brexit to control immigration. People in this country and councils are concerned about the mass costs, which is running about £8 billion a year for the whole immigration this year. Think about that.
Yeah, it's too much. It really is. No, it's too much. It's unsustainable. No, it's totally unsustainable. We genuinely can't carry on with it. Yeah, it's true. It's unsustainable. Listen, Stephen Wolfe and also Claire Fussell, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for your thoughts on that question. Well, we did contact the Home Office for a statement and we are waiting for their reply. Previously, a government spokesperson has said that the government is working with all local authorities in England, Wales and Scotland to provide more suitable accommodation for asylum seekers and to end the unacceptable use of hotels, with more than £21 million in grant funding already being provided to local authorities to help them respond to challenges in their area. Well, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter, Father Calvin Robinson. And then at 5 o'clock, difficult conversations. It is National Diabetes Awareness Month. I'll be speaking to music legend Ronald Isley from the Isley Brothers, who tragically lost a family member, his brother, as a result of complications associated with diabetes. He'll be talking all about that, plus about his collaboration with Beyoncé. That's after your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. It's 4:34. I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Counter-terrorism police say the firebombing of an immigration processing centre in Dover was motivated by an extreme right-wing terrorist ideology. Officers say evidence, including digital media devices, have been recovered during their investigation. Andrew Leake from High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire is believed to have thrown up to 3 incendiary devices at the Dover immigration site last weekend. There were no major injuries. The 66-year-old was found dead by police at a nearby petrol station. GB News has learned detainees armed with various weapons have caused a disturbance during a power cut at an immigration centre near Heathrow Airport. The Home Office says the incident happened in the early hours of this morning at Harmondsworth Immigration Removal Centre. There are currently more than 600 immigrants at Harmondsworth who are being processed for removal from the UK. A series of planned rail strikes due to start today have been called off, but the government is warning there'll still be significant disruption over the next few days. RMT members were due to walk out for 3 days, but the union says it secured a pay offer and is now entering intensive talks. However, former Assistant General Secretary at RMT, Steve Headley, says members are furious as they had no say in whether or not to call off this industrial action. And Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald says if an executive in Northern Ireland cannot be restored, then joint authority between the British and Irish government should be Plan B. The country has been without a functioning executive since February as the DUP continues to boycott the Assembly over the Northern Ireland Protocol. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Back in just a moment to Nana Akua.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Welcome. If you've just joined us, where on earth have you been? This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's fast approaching 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. We are the People's Channel. Now it's time for our great British debate this hour, and I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Critics have dubbed the Home Office dysfunctional and bureaucratic, as around about 40,000 migrants have reached British shores this year, and now the average asylum claim takes an estimated 480 days to process, with a backlog of a breathtaking 120,000 applications. Now, despite the government laying partial blame upon lefty lawyers and the French or the ECHR for some of the disruption caused, a GB News poll reveals that 58% of the country think that the British government has lost control of its borders. So for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. Right, so I'm going to start with you, Father Calvin. It's always interesting to hear what you have to say on this matter, because the Home Office, there's so many people there, full of bureaucracy. Yeah. But then I also feel there's lack of support for the person at the top of it from the party themselves. And it feels to me that that layer is where the real problem is. But what do you think?
I used to think that the civil service was the one holding the ministers back. So Priti Patel had some good ideas, could never get them pushed through. Suella Braverman also had good ideas, couldn't get them pushed through. But I don't think that anymore, because I've been looking at the longer-term statistics, and over the last 12 years, immigration has been on a massive increase, consistently, repeatedly, throughout the entirety of the Tory government. In fact, throughout the Labour government before them, but also it started at John Major, not at Tony Blair. We've had it on the increase ever since, and every single election we hear the Conservatives say we will cap immigration in the tens of thousands, or we will control our borders, or we will cut immigration, and it's all rhetoric. And I don't think they actually want to do anything about it. What I think is happening is that they are in the pockets of big business.
I was
and
just coming
big
to that.
Business. You want this cheap foreign labour.
Cheap labour.
And that's why they keep the borders open, and with the floodgates are open, and people are coming in, and it's to the detriment of social cohesion, because people aren't integrating, and it's to the detriment of British workers, because they're being undercut and outpriced, and it's to the detriment of our society, because our culture is being overridden.
You know, as you were saying that, that's exactly where I'm coming to it as well. Because, of course, people say, oh, it's Brexit, we haven't got our cheap labour. Yeah, but the whole purpose of Brexit was to stop this cheap labour force and to start paying the British worker what they should be paid so they could live within this environment at the cost that it costs every normal person. But there seems to be another agenda which is enabling this, and then as you hear it coming through, oh, well, why don't you just let them work? And then, no. Lizzie, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a national emergency. I mean, 40,000 coming over. It is crazy. But it's a problem. It's a problem for those in the boats because they could drown. It's a problem for those that live on the coastline of Kent. It's a problem for us because it's costing 7 million a day. That's our taxpayers' money. And it is chaos. And the thing is, there's a backlog which is horrific. I heard someone today saying there's 6 months just for waiting for a decision, and then you've got people, you know, not being able to be housed sufficiently, using hotels, disease breaking out. This is a national emergency, and I hope our Home Secretary, look, they've got to get behind her and just act. Words are easy. I know she said the word invasion and people are very upset about it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that word. I think they want to play with semantics to avoid actually tackling the problem.
But look, I think we could take a leaf out of Australian. I don't remember him, Tony Abbott, and he introduced a really strict turn-back policy to stop the boats, and they slashed small boats arriving from 20,000 to 0 in a space of 2 years.
Well, of course, they put the migrants onto boats in Australia. So, like, when people say turn back, people assume that you're saying turn back the dinghy. No, they put them on the boats. They put them on boats.
But we've got a huge. This is a huge national problem, and this is an emergency.
I agree with you. I think it's a national emergency. I get annoyed listening to, especially some of the left-wing media, trying to play with the rhetoric of, oh, she used the word invasion. It is an invasion. If you look in the dictionary, you'll find a definition that matches exactly what's happening here. And the only reason these people are saying that is because those boats are not coming to their house. Because if those boats were turning up outside their house and they were seeing migrants running past, or they were next door to a hotel that was full of migrants, then I think they would change their minds. It is a serious issue. It needs to be dealt with. But I think, as Calvin said, that there is another agenda, and actually they want a new workforce. Even the president of Albania is saying, oh, well, you know, you need people, and therefore it doesn't work like that.
No, and we've seen in the Telegraph today that 50% of these so-called refugee claimant seekers are not genuine refugee seekers. We've seen that the vast number of people are coming from Albania, as you've mentioned, which is a safe country, a NATO alliance country. So we shouldn't be opening the borders to people from Albania unless there is a valid reason, like every other country. Where did you get that figure from, though, just with regard to the Albanians, you said? The figure that you quoted earlier, you said... So 50%, that number's from the Telegraph. Today, I believe it was. But it's a wider problem than just asylum seekers. It's just a problem of people wanting to come over here for free benefits, for free hotels, for free mobile phones.
Well, there'll be some that are. I mean, there'll be some that, but I question whether those coming from Albania are going through that, because Albania is a NATO country. There isn't really a problem there. There's no war, there's no conflict. You can't compare them to people coming
even
from...
the countries with war and conflicts, they're coming to this country from France. We keep saying this every time.
Well, it's
I
true,
know, but the French, and I know Liz
Yeah.
Truss got in trouble saying, you know, friend or foe, but the French, we can't rely on the French, and they've got different sea laws to us, because they'll only go up to the boat if they're waving saying we're in trouble and help. They're not doing enough.
Well, yeah.
And also, look, Priti Patel, I've got to say, never stood a chance, because the European judges are dictating. We need to, you know, get rid of the European Convention of Human Rights. That's the main thing. No, straight away, Liz Truss and now Rishi should have done is get rid of this.
Well, I'd like to
we
see
can't,
them.
you know.
That's the thing.
Well, I'd like to see them get behind the Home Secretaries as well, instead of just, you know, literally banning them. And when you said about friend or foe, they jumped on that as well. Friend or foe, you can't use it. And it's like, oh, for goodness sake, how about somebody actually deal with the problem? But I'm not going to let the civil servants get off scot-free, because they have been presiding behind all of this across the decade. So a lot of them have been there for 10, 12 or whatever years it is.
But Tony Blair managed to turn
helped.
the civil service around. He managed to get them all in his favour. The Tory government's been in power for 12 years. They could have reshaped or reformed or restructured the civil service if they wanted to. They could have scrapped the ECHR if they wanted to. They could have repealed so many laws to get this through. You know, Claire Pearsall was on earlier saying that they didn't look at what the human rights lawyers would do. Of course they knew what the human rights lawyers would do. The fact of the matter is the Conservative government does not want to cut immigration, because if they wanted to, they would have done within the last 12 years.
Exactly.
They haven't.
Exactly, and we need to get rid. We can't be dictated by European judges. And just one other thing, we need to get back behind the Home Secretary. We've already got disposed of 2 Prime Ministers. You know, we really do. The Tory party, the only way they could possibly win the next election is sort this migration problem out.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't know. I also don't support the notion that oh, well, what you should do is maybe in 6 months they could work and so on and so forth, because that will draw others to come. And also then we go back to the situation where we were in Brexit, before Brexit, where we've got the wages coming down, then the indigenous population cannot get the jobs at the price they need to. So in the end, low wages, prices rising, we're still inflation. It causes more inflation, as far as I can see.
Exactly.
Right, well, we're going to solve it. We'll deal with it. Take me to the border. But this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice, your chance to tell us what you think about the topics we're discussing. Where should we go? Should we go to Grimsby again?
Yeah, I love Grimsby.
It's nice, isn't it? It's a bit grim. Let's see Alan McNeely. Hello, Alan. Nice to see you, Alan. What do you think, Alan? Your views, from what you've heard, do you think it's the problem that the Home Office is actually unfit for purpose, or do you think there's other aspects that actually it is, and there's other problems?
It's in the other problems, Nana. The Home Office is swamped at the moment with people, but we need to change our laws to bring them in line with modern day circumstances, and people really need to get behind the Home Secretary and back her. I listened to all your guests with interest. Stephen Wolf brought up an interesting fact. About 15% of those who are granted asylum are genuine. 40% are granted discretionary leave to stay. It must be incredibly difficult for the Home Office to prove or disprove who someone is when they show up with no documentation whatsoever. So their backs are up against the wall from the minute it starts, and then they've got to deal with all the appeals and lawyers and everything else that comes along with it. So is it broken? No, but it's definitely swamped. That would be my opinion on it.
Alan, thank you very much for that. That's very succinct as well. Lovely to talk to you again, Alan. See you soon. That's Alan McNeely. He's our great British voice. Right, let's have a look at what you've been saying, because today I've been asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts. Daniel said, I would argue that the Home Office is too big to operate and needs a complete restructure. I doubt this will happen, though. It won't happen, will it? They don't do anything. They don't do anything.
Nothing's going to change.
Nothing. They just keep going with the same thing, asking us for more money.
And in fact, next time the election comes around, they'll say, oh, vote for us, we will cut immigration in order to get our votes. But they won't do anything about it.
Get rid of the European judges.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that either. Well, let's see what Michael says. He says the snivel serpents, I like that, are not doing their bit to stop illegal migrants. They need to get back into the office and get back to it. Well, there was that time when they were sort of getting in the way and having their own opinion, weren't they?
Yeah.
Priti
Patel's head civil servant resigned and then made a public statement declaring that she wasn't fit for purpose, which was astonishing.
It's totally out of order as well. Let's see what Jonathan says. Jonathan says, although our new Home Secretary is trying to fix it, I do not believe it's fit for purpose. It's inefficient. We need a completely separate immigration and homeland security department. I'd agree with that. It's a bit like the NHS, though. It's like a tugboat. You've got to turn that around. Let's see what Michelle says. The Home Office is fit for purpose. What? Our civil servants, she's a civil servant, clearly she works there, are working tirelessly at home, sorry, she didn't say that, to ensure that the right people are allowed to integrate in society.
OK.
Do you think so?
How's that working out, Michelle?
Not so well.
She clearly doesn't live near any of those, not in Kent somewhere.
But there's a big flaw and loopholes in this system. Why is it happening in Germany, in Sweden, Spain, other countries?
And it's not just a Kent-wide issue, it's happening all across the country. We're seeing the results in Rochdale, Telford, Oxford, all these areas where we're seeing Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Integration is not working.
It's not, is it? Fred says, absolutely not. It hasn't been for the past 2 decades. This is a civil service, whether it's fit for purpose. John Reed said this years ago. I've also currently got a Twitter poll up right now throughout the show. I'm asking, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Currently, wow, it's a shocker. 94% of you say no. This is the highest I've seen it, actually.
I think it is.
Yeah. 6% of you do the maths, say yes. I don't know where they are, but thank you for your thoughts. As ever, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, after the break, it is Royal Roundup time, and Royal biographer Angela Levin will be in the studio to give us the latest from inside the palace walls. Meghan Markle could be planning to relaunch her blog as well, The Tig. Then at 5, This Old Heart of Mine, It's Been Broken 1,000 Times. Does that sound familiar? Summer Breeze, yes. The music legend behind those, Ron Isley, will be live here on GB News for this week's Difficult Conversation. All of that after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
So good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. It's time for Royal Roundup, and the Duchess of Sussex is still trying to trademark her blog name, The Tig. Now, she had that before she was with Harry, and it was quite successful, but then she had to get rid of it when she sort of got with him. So will she manage to bring it back? And then Mike Tindall becomes the first member of the royal family to go on ITV's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. So that's on the way. And so each Saturday, I love to give you a rundown, and joining me now is royal biographer Angela Levin.
Hello.
Hello, nice. You look very Christmassy, this is what we're saying.
Well, it was so cold and in the dark, I had to wear something bright.
Oh, you look lovely, as ever, and as ever. So now this is exciting. Well, it's exciting because there's always something going on with Meghan. She is quite captivating in the sense that you always want to see what's going on.
Yes, it's compulsive watching, isn't it? Yes, compulsive watching and reading. Well, yes, she's applied for to get back her TIG website, which she's been waiting now a year to find out whether she can do it or not. I don't know what the problem is, but it's quite interesting because she gave it up because she couldn't use the royal family to make money. And she recommends, you know, from wine or books or all sorts of things on that. So if she does get the right to have that up again, I mean, it's a bit concerning for the royal family because she's using her title and her connections to get money, to make money, which is, you know, back to the beginning, really, and shows that she couldn't care less about what the royal family think anymore.
You know what? I'm thinking with this thing, she had this before. Do you think that if she does bring this out, then Charles might say, do you know what? Titles are gone. That's enough.
No, I don't think he'll do that.
Don't think he'll ever do that?
Well, it's not up to him, you see. It has to come from Parliament. There has to be a vote for it. He can't just say, you know, off with their heads or anything like that, off with your title, more likely. He can't do that. So I think, you know, the father... as a father, he loves his son, and he did really get on with Meghan. They talked about art and theatre and all that sort of stuff. But he doesn't want something negative, so I don't think he'll suddenly say, that's it. But I do believe that if the book is very... attacks them all very much, then she and Harry are in for something. But I think it would have to be a very significant nastiness.
But you said that, so, because we talked about this before, that we could, like the public could put a petition together to have the titles removed and get Parliament to look at that?
Yes,
we said we were
it.
going to do that, but then it sounded as though, when I was listening to things, that actually Prince Charles or King Charles could take away their titles. But that's not the case then, and we could definitely put a petition together and ask for that.
Yes, let's do it.
We said we would. All right, that's it. We're doing it. Look at this on TV. Look, there you go. Petition. That's it. Titles are gone. Yeah, yes. Because I think that, you know, the book and all this, fine, make your money, do your thing, but don't do it trading as a royal
Yes, I
member.
mean, they don't have to use the title, you see. They use it, they hang on to that title as if it's the most important thing, and yet the actual monarchy is have no importance to them. So it's very hypocritical, as they often are, I'm afraid.
Yes, sadly, that is the trademark. Now, what about I'm a Celebrity? This is actually the first member of the royal family to go into the jungle and do this.
Yes. I find it rather distasteful, actually. I wonder if he'd have done it if the Queen was still alive. I don't think so. I mean, I think, although he's not a working royal, and neither is his wife, Zara, they are very much part of the royal family. And I think that you've got to sort of behave as if you are part of that, you know. And I feel that he can slip, because if you've got cameras around you 24/7, you can just say something that's inappropriate or not get your pants on properly or something like that, you know, after your shower.
No, it's true.
And actually it can go viral and it can just make a huge difference. I think you've got to be very careful. I think if you're not used to having cameras following you all the time, it's not easy to maintain a sort of the image that you want to carry through.
Well, half of them forget the cameras are rolling, as the way some of them behave when they're in there, and that kind of does happen. But I think because he's a good ambassador for the royal family, I'm not so... I think it's quite nice that I don't mind him going in there, and he's not so close to the throne. You know, he's not in line, that he's actually... I mean, he's not really in line, but then I suppose you could argue that therefore Meghan should be allowed to do her thing as well. But it's just the fact that it's the negative connotations that are coming with her, whereas he's going in probably it'll be a good PR thing.
I don't think it will be a good PR, really. So? I think you can get too close to the public. I think that you want to have a certain dignity. Somebody told me today that when they saw Prince Charles and Camilla at an event in this last week, that they felt, oh gosh, you know, the Queen had a real mystery and we're closer to them. Now, is that a good or a bad thing? It's both. Yeah. But I think that somebody who's so close on a television screen, people start thinking they really know them, and I don't think that that's appropriate.
They're turning into common folk, Angela. That's what's happening. They're turning into you and me. We don't want that. It's like when people meet me, they go, oh, no, no, no. And then I slip on something or choke on my drink or do something pretty normal, just like everybody else. Angela Levin, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. That's the fabulous Angela Levin. She's a royal biographer. That, of course, was the Royal Roundup. We love a bit of that, don't we? If you just joined me, welcome. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. More to come. On the way, I'll be speaking to music legend Ronald Isley about losing his brother to diabetes and, of course, the release of his new album featuring Beyonce. All of that on the way in the next hour. This is GB News. It's just coming up to 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome on board. Now, as ever, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. Coming up, difficult conversations. I'll be speaking to music legend Ronald Isley, and, of course, his brother will be there too as well. We'll be speaking about losing his brother to diabetes and about the release of his new album featuring Beyonce. And for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is decarbonisation a price worth paying? All of that after your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. It's coming up to 1 minute past 5. I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. The firebombing of an immigration processing centre in Dover was motivated by an extreme right-wing terrorist ideology, according to police. Counter-terrorism officers have recovered digital media devices as part of their investigation. Andrew Leake from High Wycombe is believed to have thrown up to 3 incendiary devices at the centre last weekend. However, there were no major injuries. The 66-year-old was later found dead by police at a nearby petrol station. GB News has learned that detainees armed with various weapons have caused a disturbance at an immigration centre in London. The Home Office says the incident happened in the early hours of this morning during a power cut at Harmondsworth Removal Centre. No one was injured and authorities remain at the scene. The centre currently has more than 600 immigrants being processed for removal from the United Kingdom. The United Nations chief says the world is doomed unless a historic pact is signed between rich and poor countries. The warning from Antonio Guterres comes ahead of the COP27 summit next week. Wealthy nations have already promised to find almost £88 billion a year to help poor nations to tackle climate change. The scheme was originally meant to start in 2020, but it's now not expected to happen until next year. A series of rail strikes, which were due to start today, have been called off, but the government warns there'll still be significant disruption over the next few days. RMT members were due to walk out for 3 days, but the union is now entering intensive talks after securing a pay offer. Not everyone supports the move. Former Assistant General Secretary at the RMT, Steve Headley, says members are furious as they had no say.
We're in a situation where the strike's been called off and the members don't know why. And the explanations being given at the minute don't make sense. Intensive negotiations, well, what were they doing before? If there's a deal on the table, let the members have a look at it. The members will soon say yes or no.
Sinn Féin's leader says a joint authority between the British and Irish governments should be introduced if the executive in Northern Ireland cannot be restored. Mary Lou MacDonald made the comments ahead of her keynote speech at her party's conference this evening. The country has been without a functioning executive since February, as the DUP continues to boycott the Assembly over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Chair of the Northern Ireland Conservatives, Matthew Robinson, told GB News a solution has to be found.
We either need a restoration of the devolved government, or we need some form of direct rule from Westminster. We deserve proper governance in Northern Ireland. We have a collapsing healthcare system here. I mean, we are in dire straits in terms of waiting times. We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis as well, just like the rest of the UK. We need proper governance.
French far-right party National Rally has elected a new leader to take over from Marine Le Pen. 27-year-old Jordan Bardella will replace her, marking the first time in the party's 50-year history where it's not been led by a member of the Le Pen family. Ms Le Pen says she'll now focus on leading the party's group in Parliament after taking 89 seats in the National Assembly earlier on this year. And Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, has criticised activists who he says have pressured major advertisers to stop spending on the platform. The world's richest man defended his decision to sack around half of the company's workforce, saying all staff who'd been laid off were offered 3 months redundancy pay. And amid concerns over disinformation on the site, Mr. Musk is adamant that the company's commitment to content moderation has not been compromised. OK, you're watching GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Nana.
It's fast approaching 5 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. Still to come at 5, difficult conversations, and it's National Diabetes Awareness Month. Music legends Ronald Isley and his brother Ernie from the R&B global sensation the Isley Brothers will be joining me. Ronald and Ernie tragically lost their brother Marvin, who's a bass player who suffered with diabetes for 20 years and died as a result of complications associated with the condition at age just 56. Ronnie and Ernie Isley will be live in a few moments. We'll also get a sneaky preview of their new track featuring Beyoncé. Then, in the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is decarbonisation a price worth paying? The government aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from public buildings by 75% in the next 15 years as part of its net zero strategy. According to government figures, it is expected to cost between 25 to 30 billion pounds. Now, amid the cost of living crisis, is this something the country can really afford? Email me your thoughts as ever, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me @gbnews. Now, of course, it is time for this week's difficult conversation. November is National Diabetes Awareness Month, and almost 5 million people in the UK suffer with the condition. Now, it occurs when people's blood sugar levels are too high, and this can damage the eyes, the kidneys and the heart. After suffering with diabetes for 20 years, Marvin Isley passed away from complications with his condition in 2010. Joining me today to discuss Marvin's life and, of course, their own careers are music legends Ronald and Ernie Isley. Now, Ronald formed the award-winning R&B group, the Isley Brothers, in the 50s, and his brother Ernie later joined the group. Together, they took the music world by storm. Now, the group are best known for their breakout hit single, Shout, and have won 2 Grammys, as well as accumulating 28 platinum albums. And just this year, the Isley Brothers collaborated with Beyoncé and reached #1 in the States. So to raise awareness, I'm joined now by Ronald and Ernie Isley. Thank you so much. I cannot believe that we are in presence of legends. My goodness. Wow. I've been listening to your music from the beginning, from the start. Obviously, I wasn't born in the 50s, obviously, but I've been listening to it pretty much from the 70s and on. So before we get stuck into the music, talk to me a little bit about your younger brother, Marvin, because he was a real integral part of the band. What was he like? And talk me through the early years of you becoming a band.
Marvin had a great sense of humor. He could write lyrics real fast. I know he did the lyrics to Groove With You in about 10 minutes. And it was always a great deal of fun to be on stage as brothers performing different songs from our catalog, including Shout.
Now, of course,
I think he was one of the nicest brothers. He was one of the friendliest, nicest brothers that we had. Baby brother.
Now, you know, for what he went through, because I understand that he went through quite a lot with diabetes, and there was a quote that he said that if he had spent sort of focused more, as he did with his music, towards the diabetes, that he wouldn't have had to go through what he went through. Can you talk us through some of the things that he had to go through because of his condition?
Well, you know, diabetes is a disease that takes no prisoners ultimately. And initially, you know, it can start off where you might lose a toe, you know. Eventually, with Marvin, it got to where he lost both legs just below the knee. And, you know, you have all this dialysis and things you have to deal with in order to, you know, just to stay alive. And depending upon the state of diabetes, you know, you'll have a limited time with that. And it's just, in the end, oh my God, it's a real negative, heartbreaking experience for that to occur.
I want to ask you then, so of course he sadly passed away. Now, you've obviously been through a lot of, you know, your music career spanned such a long period. I mean, it's been, how many years? It's been, 70 years your music has been around? Yeah.
To the present day.
Yeah.
With Make Me Say It Again, Girl, which has been #1 on the R&B charts 5 consecutive weeks and counting.
Should we get a sneaky peek of your new track? Should we have a listen to it? Let's play it. Let's have a listen.
Make me say it again, girl. Oh, make me say it again, boy. Make me say it again, girl.
Absolutely beautiful. Now, you have obviously, there's Beyonce's voice on that. You've worked with some huge stars. Obviously, you are big stars yourselves. Talk to me about what it was like working with Beyonce or collaborating for this particular track.
Well, we work with 2 Chainz, and we work with the rappers, the brothers rappers, Quavo and Takeoff. And we work with Snoop Dogg, and we work with Rick Ross, and we work with Earth, Wind and Fire, Philip Bailey and El DeBarge, and we work with Trey Songz,
and of course we work with Beyonce.
Yeah.
So Make Me Say It Again, Girl, the duet.
Now, the track is beautiful. Her voice is amazing. The fact that you guys have all collaborated together. As someone who is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and seemingly has it all, what is the next thing you guys could be doing? Because this is massive. You've conquered everything.
You're about right about that. Working on a tour to come to the UK sometime in 2023.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that.
And do you plan to release more albums or some more singles?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to all
The
of that.
next one will be something called The Plug.
Wow. Now, I want to ask you, throughout your career, is there one moment that stood out that you could, is there one moment that you remember which has literally been the biggest moment of your life?
Well, I remember writing the song Shout in 1959 on the stage of Philadelphia, and I'll never forget that. And Ernie, I guess he could tell you his memories himself, but
there's tons of memories. There's first of all, watching my older brothers perform in a theater, and the lights go out, and they take over the show. They're a very hard act to follow. Folks going crazy, and that was with Shout and Twist and Shout. And eventually, This A Heart of Mine was a part of that performance. It's Your Thing was a part of it. That Lady, Fight the Power, Between the Sheets, up into and including what's going on right now with Make Me Say It Again, Girl, being #1 for 5 consecutive weeks and counting. There's not another group or artist that has had that kind of a chart record from the 50s through every decade, and to have a #1 record now, that's totally unprecedented. Thank all our music fans for that support.
Well, it's an absolute exclusive here on GB News. I can't believe I've got the pleasure of actually playing a little clip of it to our viewers and listeners to hear how incredible it is. One of my favourite songs that you did sing, I don't think you wrote this one though, Summer Breeze. That is literally one of my favourite songs. You sang that, didn't you? You did sing it. But did you guys write it?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that's a beautiful song. Can you do
What about This A Heart of Mine? We did with Rod Stewart.
Yeah, and Rod is an absolute legend. Who would you say is your? I know obviously they might watch and might see this, but who would you say is one of the best people that you've ever met in the industry?
Wow, there's so many great people. A good friend, Johnny Mathis, is a good friend of mine. But everybody, Aretha Franklin. You can go on and on. Sam Cooke, Jackie Wilson. Even today, people like Earth, Wind and Fire and Santana. And I'll probably leave out some hundreds of names. we're all friends with everybody in the industry.
And out of your
We
song,
met, you know, when we were in England, our keyboard player was Elton John. We met Mick Jagger and Paul McCartney and all of the fellas there over there in England. Yes.
out of your songs, then.
Jimi Hendrix. I don't want to leave nobody out. You know.
Out of your songs, then, what's your favourite one of all time?
Ernie,
say that again?
Out of all your songs, because you've written a load, you sang a load as well, which one is your favourite?
Oh, songs?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I could say, Make Me Say It Again, Girl. I could say, At Your Best You Are Love. I could say, Harvest for the World.
Fight the Power.
Fight the Power. Voyage to Atlantis.
Who's that lady?
Yeah, Who's That Lady? There's, you know, our catalog is quite extensive, and of course, because of the longevity, it stretches.
It's Your Thing.
Yeah, It's Your Thing is in there too. So
yeah.
Wow, so like the songs you're saying, I think, oh yeah, that one and that one and that one. Amazing. Listen, it's such a pleasure meeting you both. My dad will be so jealous because he used to dance. He used to put his albums on and he used to dance around as though he thought he was the best thing on earth. He looked ridiculous, but he danced to all your music, and I grew up listening to all of it. It is an absolute honour to meet you both. That's Ronald Isley and Ernie Isley. Let's play them out with their brand new track. If you could just introduce it, we'll play a little bit of it now.
the track, brand new.
Yeah.
What would that be? The plug? Make Me Say It Again.
Yeah.
Yeah, Make Me Say It Again, Girl, with Beyonce as a duet.
Make me say it again, girl. Make me say it again, boy. Make me say it again, girl.
Ronald and Ernie Isley, thank you so much. It's out now. Make Me Say It Again. Thank you so much. It's lovely to talk to you. And of course, for the Isley Brothers, this was Difficult Conversations. Of course, it is a National Diabetes Awareness Month. Now, fabulous track. What an incredible guest. They were on the way, though, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is decarbonisation a price worth paying? The government aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from public buildings by 75% over the next 15 years as part of its net zero strategy. But figures show that it could cost a staggering £30 billion. But is this just simply a waste of money? That's all after this.
Well, looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK's looking rather wet, actually, especially across the south and east. Drier, though, with clear spells elsewhere. Let's home in on what detail. So starting in the southwest, rather cloudy, outbreaks of light rain and drizzle across the east of the region. Drier further west, where we do have a few cloud breaks developing. A much cloudier picture further east, with patchy outbreaks of light rain and drizzle this evening. The rain turning much heavier around London. After a damp afternoon across Wales, conditions will improve as drier conditions arrive from the west, but cloud will linger across high ground. And crossing to the West Midlands, cloud and drizzly outbreaks clearing eastwards, clear spells during the evening, but a bit of mist and fog developing later. The cloud and rain already clearing in the northeast, with mostly dry conditions across the region, but lighter winds and a chance of mist and fog patches as well there. And then looking up to Scotland, then largely dry across Scotland, some cloud lingering across high ground, clear spells and light winds, temperatures dipping into single figures overnight, feeling rather chilly at last for November. And then looking at Northern Ireland, dry, clear spells, a few showers arriving across the very far northwest during the evening as winds pick up a little. So winds picking up then from the west as showers arrive, rain from the south and the east becoming heavier towards dawn, and that's how the weather's shaping up.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
So it's just coming up to 22 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. We are the People's Channel, and it is time for our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is decarbonisation a price worth paying? Government figures have shown the complete decarbonisation of the UK's public sector buildings estimated to cost around about 25 to 30 billion pounds. Now, a number of new buildings can now have low-carbon systems, such as heat pumps and solar panels. Much older properties will need to have the latest equipment installed or converted. Now, it's all part of the government's net zero strategy, with targets of reducing greenhouse gas emissions from all public estates by 75% over the next 15 years. But it's not really going to be easy. Our country is actually in a state of turmoil as people face a cost of living crisis, and this actually begs the question whether the government should just prioritise decarbonisation of public sector buildings over other pressing matters. Why are they doing that? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is decarbonisation a price worth paying? So to break this down further, I'm joined in the studio by physicist, engineer Brian Catt. Wow, the cat is back. Yes, the yellow memo again.
Summary, because it's horrible out there.
I'm prouder than you. Brian, let's see it. So let's talk about this. Decarbonisation, what the hell does it mean?
Basically, it's a buzzword. It's an excuse. What's the word? A code word to use to justify everything that they do. We must decarbonise. We must decarbonise. But as you know from other discussions we've had, there's no actual proof that carbon dioxide has anything to do with climate change.
But they say it does. They say that the CO2 in the atmosphere is causing global warming. That's what they're telling us. I don't know about the science. To me, it feels spurious, but that's what they're saying, which is why we don't want the carbon.
Well, and that's not what we're talking about now.
No.
So we talk about it, but basically there is no science that supports that. Definitely, there's as much science that says the opposite.
Okay.
So should we be wasting tens of billions on it? No. Especially when we know that if you try to upgrade an old building, you will never get your money back. So if you can't persuade the public to do it and fund all the people, all the politicians' cronies who have the companies that do the work to convert the buildings.
OK, so I get it. It's a lot of those, because a lot of those contracts, for example, Emphasis, which Rishi Sunak's wife has a share in, her company have had about £500 million worth of public sector contracts. So you're saying that some of these contracts will go to these sort of people or people potentially.
You may think that, I can't possibly comment.
But that's just I thought that's what you were implying.
Absolutely,
right.
It is.
So big companies that
the whole point about what decarbonisation about is monetising the fear of climate change, which they basically educated people to believe in. So that's how you make your billions. If we were trying to do something positive with the money, we'd probably try to reduce the cost of energy.
Right. But how do you go about taking the carbon out of the building then? So that's getting rid of the current things, so things that are gas-powered and stuff like that, isn't it?
Get rid of the boilers, you have to put in the heat pump, you have to put in underfloor heating if it's an air-cooled system. So basically it's a horribly expensive thing to do to a building which was not built to the standards that are required in the first place. And we had this guy, what was it, John Grant, on some time ago, saying exactly that. He said, yes, it's very expensive, but energy is so expensive now, it might even make sense in a new build, but not in an old
one.
So the government is facing something, people basically saying, well, this is a stupid idea, I'm not going to do that. So what are they going to do? Oh, I know what. We'll just make the taxpayer pay to have it done in all our buildings.
Well, of course, John's not here to confirm that, but he was here the other week, and he did say those things, so yes.
Yeah.
I can confirm that. Right, let's, stay there, Brian, because, as you said, some people would suggest that you shouldn't really do it in the old buildings. It might cost more. But I'm also joined by the Conservative peer and member of the Environment and Climate Change Committee, Lord Peter Lilly. Peter, thank you very much for joining me.
Good afternoon.
So in terms of the green agenda, then, should we really be prioritising decarbonisation of public sector buildings?
Well, certainly where you can insulate or otherwise change the heating system in a building and save in fuel costs enough over time, over a reasonably brief period to pay for it, we should certainly do it. I great respect for Brown Cap, but I think there is a lot of, the basic science of global warming, that if you double the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it will increase the temperature by about 1 degree, is about as robust as any science I know. What is less robust is estimates of that will lead to sort of knock-on effects which will increase it much more. So there will be some global warming. If that is going to disrupt things, I'm a conservative, I don't want avoidable disruption. If we can avoid an element of disruption that will come from climate change by mitigating climate change, we should take that into account and do it where it's cost effective, where the benefits in terms of fuel savings and other knock-on benefits exceed the costs. But we shouldn't just do it religiously and say, whatever the cost, we must do it in order to meet some arbitrary target. And that's what appears to be happening here. They're saying, how do you reduce emissions by 75%? Oh, it'll cost 30 billion, let's spend 30 billion. But they haven't said, well, the benefits are going to be greater than 30 billion. If they're greater than 30 billion, do it. If they're not, don't.
So what do you think then? Because is it it feels like, again, an arbitrary figure, sort of 75%, and it feels like it'd be very disruptive and extremely expensive, and we don't really know whether the kickback will actually be worthwhile. And ultimately, the British taxpayer will have to sum up the money for this. And in a report last month, the House of Lords Environment and Climate Change Committee warned that the UK will miss its target to achieve net zero anyway, emissions by 2050. So should we be bothering with this as a priority at the moment?
I'm sure that quite a lot of it would not be a priority, even if in terms of making progress towards eliminating all carbon emissions by 2050, net zero. There are, as Brian said, a lot of buildings are very, very difficult to do. House of Parliament, for one, it was almost inconceivable you could make it energy efficient. So why not focus on things which can be made energy efficient first and leave the more difficult ones until last? That would seem to be sensible. I think, however, the government's saying, oh, well, we don't want to be criticised by virtue-seeking climate enthusiasts. They'll say, oh, you've got buildings in the public sector which are not energy efficient. You better spend whatever it takes, get rid of it. No, we have a limited amount of money and resources in the economy. Let's spend it on sensible things which pay for themselves or make the most progress towards net zero at the least cost. And not all public buildings fit into that category.
Well, let's bring Brian back in on this as well, because it sounds to me like you guys are sort of agreeing on a level there.
I couldn't really have the front to disagree with Peter too much. He's a very principled man and one of the few people who spoke against the Energy and Climate Change Act in Parliament in 2008. It has been one of my ideas on the way in the cab that perhaps the best way to decarbonise the public sector is to burn down Westminster. That would be a good start. But apart from that, not wishing to raise the public up to riot, the one issue is what the actual climate change ECS that you've talked about is. And yes, I mean, Happer and Weingarten, you know about these things, have come up with a number of 1 degree. The numbers come down from 4 or 5 that the UN started off with, and gradually it's coming down closer and closer to next to nothing, something which isn't going to have a major effect. But none of them have properly included the natural feedback. That's the perturbation that you get from putting that much CO2 into the atmosphere. It's not the net effect. They don't know how to calculate the net effect.
Well, I agree, there is an element of uncertainty about it, but I probably suspect this time of the afternoon's not the time to bore your viewers with tedious discussions of radiative physics, much as Brian and I would like to. He mentioned I voted against the Climate Change Act. I did because I went to the House of Commons vote office to get the cost-benefit analysis that government are obliged to produce when a piece of legislation comes. And I was the only person to do so, I know, because they had to open the packet to give it to me. And it was unusual. It said the potential cost of the Climate Change Act was twice the maximum benefits. And all the costs would fall on the British people, and all the benefits would be distributed over the rest of the world. So I voted against it. I couldn't see how you could do otherwise, which didn't mean to say there weren't things you shouldn't do to decarbonise, but you should do things which were cost effective. And that's been my mantra ever since, and what I've been trying to get over this afternoon, that yes, where you can save money and save harm by insulating or changing your heating system in buildings or other things, do it. But if the costs exceed the benefit, go off and find something which is beneficial and spend your money on that.
Well, Lord Peter Liddy, thank you very much for joining me as a Conservative peer and member of the Environment and Climate Change Committee. And also Brian Catt, physicist and engineer. So what do you think? Let's see what you've been saying. Sean says absolutely not. The government need to get their priorities straight and focus on the migrant crisis and dealing with our economy to spend 25 to 30 billion pounds in order to decarbonise public buildings in order to help reach the unrealistic legislative requirements by 2050 will once again cost the British taxpayer during an economic crisis. Hear, hear. Mike says yes, when China, USA, India and Russia stop using coal-fired power stations. Mark says decarbonisation should come in time, in due course, and ideally no price should be paid for this. It's a commendable ideal aim, but not at any cost. Well, if you just joined me, welcome on board. 33 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way, we'll continue our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is decarbonisation a price worth paying? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter, Father Calvin Robinson. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
"34 minutes past 5, I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. The firebombing of an immigration processing centre in Dover was motivated by an extreme right-wing terrorist ideology, according to counter-terrorism police. Andrew Leake from High Wycombe is believed to have thrown up to 3 incendiary devices at the centre last weekend. However, there were no major injuries. The 66-year-old was later found dead at a nearby petrol station. GB News has learned that detainees armed with various weapons have caused a disturbance at an immigration centre in London. The Home Office says the incident happened in the early hours of this morning during a power cut at Harmondsworth Removal Centre. No one was injured and authorities remain at the scene. A series of rail strikes, which were due to start today, have been called off, but the government warns there'll still be significant disruption over the next few days. The RMT stopped the walkout after securing a pay offer for negotiations. However, not everyone supports the move. Some members are reportedly furious as they had no say in the decision. And Sinn Féin's leader says a joint authority between the British and Irish governments should be introduced if the executive in Northern Ireland cannot be restored. Mary Lou MacDonald made the comments ahead of her keynote speech at her party's conference this evening. The country has been without a functioning executive since February, as the DUP continues to boycott the Assembly over the Northern Ireland Protocol. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News, the People's Channel. Back to Nana in just a moment.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 39 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget to download the GB News app where you can check out all the programmes here on the channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now it's time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, is decarbonisation a price worth paying? Now, as part of the government's net zero strategy, with targets of reducing greenhouse gas emissions from all UK public estates by 75% over the next 15 years, so another one of those targets, the total cost of decarbonisation is estimated to be between 25 to 30 billion pounds. Yeah, that begs the question whether the government should actually prioritise decarbonising buildings over other pressing matters like the cost of living crisis, by the way. So for our Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is decarbonisation a price worth paying? Let's see what my panel make of that. Broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. Lizzie, decarbonisation. Keir Starmer was talking about it. It's decarbonisation of electricity, I think he was going on about. But public buildings, 25 to 30 billion pounds.
Well, in one answer, no. Sorry, can we just remember we only hold 1% of global emissions? How about it does more in convincing nations like China, USA, India, who are far, far, far higher? And can I say, the UK, this is a fact here, have 26 million boilers, and there's an objective is to get new boilers after 2025. Now, what is the cost of this? I mean, really, how are we going to gear to replace them, and how? And how will it affect people's pockets? And why, when we have just 1% of global emissions here? Is it worth it? We're in a high cost of living here at the minute. We've got an economic crisis. Sorry.
Well, and also, where are they going to put the old boilers? I mean, just put them on the scrap heap in some landfill. They don't seem to be thinking about that. Kelvin?
the climate, well, the world needs carbon dioxide in the climate. It's important for us to survive. And Liz is right, we contribute 1% to the global emissions, and that's 1% of 0.04% of CO2 in the atmosphere. So it's a nonsense, isn't it? So I have to ask the question, why are we so focused and so fixed on this net zero agenda? Could it possibly be because so many people make a lot of money from the green policies? Could it be that the green levies and the green taxes make so much money? Could it be that the wind farms and the solar panels make so much money? I'm just guessing here that big business, again, has something to do with lobbying our governments.
Because there's subsidies, aren't they? So they say wind is cheaper, that's because it's subsidised heavily. Green energy is cheaper, that's because it's subsidised heavily.
Yep. And we are paying for it.
Did you know Sweden has just abolished their net zero?
Oh,
Did you know that?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well done, Sweden.
Yeah, well done, Sweden. But look, they're all going to COP27, and it just doesn't make sense. All taking private jets. And then Rishi, who said he wasn't going to go, then he's doing a Liz Truss doing a U-turn.
Are you going, Lizzie?
Just because I have been asked.
She's been asked. Go.
But no, I am not going to go.
You should go. You should turn up to all the venues
something
and say,
quite,
this is nonsense.
All in green, head to toe.
We're in green. Go like a leaf. Turn it over.
Go and tell Rishi, what the hell are you doing here? No, but why did he U-turn on it? You know, he's got so much going
Boris
on
was
here.
Going. It's because Boris was going. He U-turned because Boris was going, and he thought, oh no, if Boris is going, he'll be seen as a leader. I'm the leader. I'm the leader.
Yeah.
Same.
But what have they done with all the other COP26? They haven't solved it, have they? What have they actually been doing?
26 of the damn things already.
Exactly. What have they done on the other COP26? It's not a lot.
This is the great money-making scheme, isn't it? Because when you invent the problem, you invent the solution too. There's nothing to solve.
Correct.
It just seems a bit ridiculous. I mean, look, the fact that we're saying COP27, what the one was... do you remember COP26 where they had the electric cars? They were going to go all electric, and in the end they couldn't get enough electricity, so they had to bring in a diesel generator so they could power their electric cars. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It really was. They flew there. I think it was 25,000 delegates. A load of them flew there in private jet. I mean, how can they honestly stand there? They could do this by Zoom.
Yes, exactly. Do it by Zoom and get China there. They're the biggest ones. And if we all did what Greta says to do, would it really have an effect?
It wouldn't have an
It'd be
impact,
minuscule.
We as a country don't really make an impact. You're right. China needs to change. If we do want to cut carbon emissions on a global scale, which I'm not even saying we do, but if we do, China needs to change.
Yeah.
So these people need to be lobbying China.
Well, you say that, but I think then we need to change. We need to stop buying things from China because whilst we're saying, oh, we'd only use 1% or whatever, the reason they're doing so much is because we're buying off them. So they are the world's, literally the world's manufacturers. We do need to stop buying from China anyway.
So
if we stop buying, but then the other thing is the fact that we're saying net zero, electric car. I mean, all these parts are being flown around the world to make the electric car.
It just doesn't make sense.
Let's literally rape the land of all its lithium and cobalt and all. Let's put slave labour in. Let's force everybody to scrap their currently perfectly working cars for new ones. Let's get loads of raw materials.
Money.
But why do this when it's hurting our economy? And why are they all whizzing in private jets? It's so hypocritical.
It's not hurting our economy. It's hurting
COP27.
It's hurting normal folk. It's hurting normal people's bank balances. It's raising a lot of other people's. And again, we always have to follow the money. People saying you need to buy electric cars are the same people that want you to ditch your perfectly fine working car and spend so much money on an electric car because they make profit.
Well, where are we getting the money for the new boilers?
Well, exactly. We're in a cost of lockdown crisis. The government should be focusing on supporting people and making sure that people can make ends meet, not on taxing them for green levies.
So what do we need? Let's put a list here. We all need a new boiler, everybody. We need a heat pump. We need solar panels. Insulation. Electric car, car chargers, car batteries. Have I missed anything?
I mean, I'll be totally stuffed if I got an electric car. There's nowhere points near me. I live in a rural countryside. I mean, it really is hypocritical.
Well, this is all by 30 or 2025. They've moved some things forward, some things back.
I was at Skegness the other day for the first time in lots of years, and the whole horizon now is just wind farms, wind turbines everywhere. It just ruins the whole landscape of the British seaside.
Well, also there's the environmental impact of them as well. Lots of wildlife being killed in them, getting trapped in them, the workings underneath it, and then things flying into them, and you can't even store the electricity. So it's sort of like, well... And you need, as literally all the energy experts I've spoken to, you need a fossil fuel or some other backup for them.
But then everyone's buying into it. Everyone's like, oh, you're a climate denier.
Yes.
Like, I don't deny that there is a climate. There is definitely a climate, but we are not having a massive impact on it. And even if we are, it's not affecting the atmosphere.
And also it will rebalance itself. Brian talks about feedback.
I have to say, I would like to go to COP only to be a fly on the wall with Rishi and Boris if they're in the same room.
Do it.
Go, Lizzie. Maybe you can do some live reports from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
GBNews reporter. Lizzie.
Yes, they'll run when they see me coming. They'll jump on their jet.
dressed as a leaf, Lizzie Cundy.
Racing down.
That'd be funny. So what do you think then? Decarbonisation, your final thoughts on it, Lizzie? Is this 25 to 30 billion, is it a price worth paying?
No, it isn't. We have a multi-million pound black hole. We've got so much that needs to be done here. No, I don't. I'm sorry to say. And I think you agree with me.
No, and I'm cynical of anyone that says that it is a price worth paying. I want to know why they think so.
Yeah. Maybe because they've got some electric car company or they're making batteries or something like that.
Vested interests.
Yes, indeed.
But as ever, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices, their opportunity to tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing today. I've got 4 great British voices. I love it when that's... Oh, nobody's wearing the same colour as me as well, although his background is the same colour. Right, let's start with Olivia. Olivia Parry. Olivia Parry in Surrey.
Hello, Nana.
Hello.
Hi, Nana. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Decarbonisation, 25 to 30 billion. Is it worth it?
Well, the USA contribute 14% to carbon, China 29%, India 7%, Russia 4.6%, and as Lizzie said, we only contribute 1%. So, you know, why should we be paying so much more than these countries? It's just, it always seems like, you know, we have to do more. What about these stupid people who glue themselves to the road? Why don't they go to Russia or China and glue themselves to the road there? I wonder how that would turn out.
Well, they've seen it on some of the TikTok videos. If you have a look at them, they just simply rip their hands off of the thing, which is most entertaining. But we wouldn't do that here, unfortunately. Olivia, thank you very much. Right, let's go to Jonathan Jones, who's there in Cornwall. Jonathan, he's got to have a cup of tea. He's got a cup of tea. Yeah. We need to get you a GB News mug, Jonathan. So what do you think? Decarbonisation?
No, it's completely bonkers. I mean, the cost is so huge. And when you think that we could all be supporting British farmers and drinking more British tea, of course, but thinking about sensible, practical...
Oh, no.
Something that is... So, our first little project here to count every tree on Earth, we counted 15 million so far. And I agree with most of your panel, but I think Lord Lilly and Calvin missed it. It's the research, leading in science, and actually getting some numbers behind this. It's net zero.
Your line's cracking up, unfortunately. I wanted to hear what you're saying. Darn it, but at least you've got a cup of tea. Right, where should we go next? Then let's go to Lee Webb. He's calling there from Bedford. Lee.
Hello, Nana. I just think the Chinese and the Indians and things like that, they must be laughing their heads off at us. I mean, the government are raising at the moment 45.7 billion last year in green levies. And that's costing us, it's £195 in the average electricity bill, which if they took that away, we'd be a lot better off. It's not going to help in any way by putting this money onto us and putting these extra costs onto us, unless China's on board and they're making loads and loads of coal stations. And with what Calvin was saying about Skegness, all the windmills going around there, I've been to Skegness, I've seen them windmills, the windmills are never moving.
It's ruined it, it's ruined it. Julie Shaw in Britain.
It's ruined it, they don't work, they're never moving.
Let's go to Julie. Thank you for that, Lee. Let's get to Julie. Julie,
well, our government's response to climate change and previous government's response has always been too little, too late. If this cost had been spread years back, we wouldn't be in this situation. They're trying to sell it to us by saying it's going to save the taxpayer $650 million a year. Well, over 15 years, that's just 9.75 billion, which is nowhere near the 25 to 30 billion that it's costing us.
It's a rip-off. It's a rip-off.
Yeah.
Julie. It is
it's an absolute rip-off. And it wouldn't stop there, because by 2025, it would mean we have to start converting social and community housing. So it wouldn't stop at just the buildings.
We're not buying it. We're not buying it. Listen, Julie, thank you so much. Olivia in Surrey, Jonathan in Cornwall, Lee Webb in Bedford. And also, Julie, thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you all. Those are the great British voices, and that's what they think. And by the way, Matt Hancock has just entered the jungle.
Oh, no! Run!
Right, so it's time for our quickfire quiz. This is the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories sitting in the headlines right now. If you've just tuned in, I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robertson. Right, Lizzie, let me hear your buzzer. And Calvin, your buzzer. Right, remember, don't press the buzzer until I finish the question, otherwise You'll be disqualified.
No cheating.
Right here. Question number 1. During this year's Wimbledon final, tennis player Nick Kyrgios managed to get a spectator ejected after accusing her of doing what? Was it A, eating too many strawberries? Was it B, drinking too much? Or C, screaming the words, let, putting him off his game? Lizzie.
C.
C, screaming the word let. What do you think, Calvin?
B.
It was B.
Wow.
Drinking too much. Well, very good.
What? Drinking what?
I don't know. But you don't get the point, honestly, Calvin.
No.
You can't have that because Lizzie was first. Right. What? Yeah, so I've just, there's the rules. I've just added that in. Having just received a code violation for swearing, Kyrgios then implored the umpire to have a woman ejected, saying she looks like she's had about 700 drinks, bro. Oh my God. In the aftermath and realising his mistake, the tennis player has since donated £20,000 to the Great Ormond Street Hospital, a charity chosen by the ejectee. Perhaps he should have given her the money instead. What do you think?
It's terrible. But I do like these characters in tennis and I miss them, I have to say, you know, like McEnroe and all of that, I do. But, yeah, funny.
Hey, if she's still capable of playing the game, what's the problem?
Exactly, there you go. Yes, question 2. So it's 0-0. Question 2.
It's 1-0.
OK, 1-0. Former Health Secretary Matt Hancock has been suspended as a Tory MP for joining his this year's I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. But which other politician previously had the whip withdrawn for appearing on the show? Was it A, Levitt Opik? Was it B, Nadine Dorries? Was it C, Robert Kilroy Singh? Calvin.
B, Nadine Dorries.
It was indeed the very own. I like Nadine. She's great. Nadine
great.
Dorries, I think she's
She was very funny in that
she's
as
very
well.
funny. She's a brilliant woman. Yes.
And she looked good.
She did, yes. Yes, back in 2012, the Tory party suspended Nadine after it emerged that she would take time off Parliament to be a contestant. She tried to justify her decision, saying, and I remember this, that she would act as a platform to reach the public and raise awareness. It's slightly Lineker-esque, isn't it? In a way.
Very much
Nevertheless. But it was good, and she was fabulous in it. So what do you think?
Well, what about Matt Hancock going in?
Yeah, Matt.
Oh, I mean, he's going to get every trial. My good friend Boy George is in there, and he's very pleased because he said everyone is going to vote for him to eat kangaroo testicles and things.
Yeah, but he's already made up a medical excuse, hasn't he? He said he's got this secret medical condition where he can't do many trials.
No, he's not going to get out of that. No, he's not going to. We're going to get voting for everything. Right, question 3. Please play along at home, by the way. True or false? In a laboratory in Norwich, scientists believe that they are on the cusp of producing bananas that do not go brown. Is that true or false? Lizzie?
True.
It is actually true, yes. It is true. In a lab run by Tropic Biosciences, thousands of banana plant clones begin their lives as a single cell in glass flasks. Now, this is the stage where their DNA is edited using a tool known as the CRISPR.
Why?
This has revolutionised science over the last decade. Calvin,
Oh, stop messing around with nature. We don't need bananas that have been genetically modified to never go brown. What other side effects do you have from eating these things?
I don't know. You might go brown.
You've dressed as banana today.
A brown banana.
No, not a banana. I'm inside out, though. I don't know, because they're brown.
I love a banana.
Yeah, thank you. That used to be my nickname. It wasn't funny. Nana Banana. I used to say, no, it's Nana, as in spanner. Nil points for that. Did anybody get that right? Right.
No, I did.
Yeah, Lizzie, all right. And question 4, closest answer wins. A pub-hopping pensioner from Southampton has taken part in Wetherspoon's pub crawl, which started back in 2014. But how many has he visited? Closest answer. Lizzie.
40.
Go.
100.
I can't accept your answer anyway.
Oh, do you think very strict today?
901.
What?
You're the closest Calvin gets.
901.
83 took a 300-mile round trip to
man.
Birmingham in his hometown, Southampton, and upon his travels visited 901 pubs, 100 the first being the Wetherspoons. Yeah. Right, on today's show, I've been asking you, is the Home Office fit for purpose? Who won that quiz, by the way?
Me.
No, you did not.
According to Axford's poll, 5% of you say yes. The Home Office is fit for purpose. 95% of you say no. Thank you so much to my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also GB News presenter Father Calvin Robinson. And a huge thank you to you at home for your company. I'll be back at 4 tomorrow to discuss the top stories with GB News presenter Andrew Pearce and also broadcaster and columnist Danny Kelly. And also joining me for Outside is Lee John. He was part of the acclaimed funk soul group Imagination. You won't want to miss that. He'll be live in the studio. I'll leave you with the weather. Take care. Enjoy. I'll see you tomorrow.
Well, looking ahead to this evening's weather, and the UK is looking rather wet, actually, especially across the south and east. Drier, though, with clear spells elsewhere. Let's home in on what detail. So starting in the southwest, rather cloudy, outbreaks of light rain and drizzle across the east of the region. Drier further west, where we do have a few cloud breaks developing. A much cloudier picture further east, with patchy outbreaks of light rain and drizzle this evening. The rain turning much heavier around London. After a damp afternoon across Wales, conditions will improve as drier conditions arrive from the west, but cloud will linger across high ground. And crossing to the West Midlands, cloud and drizzly outbreaks clearing eastwards, clear spells during the evening, but a bit of mist and fog developing later. The cloud and rain already clearing in the northeast, with mostly dry conditions across the region, but lighter winds and a chance of mist and fog patches as well there. And then looking up to Scotland, then largely dry across Scotland, some cloud lingering across high ground, clear spells and light winds, temperatures dipping into single figures overnight, feeling rather chilly at last for November. And then looking at Northern Ireland, dry, clear spells, a few showers arriving across the very far northwest during the evening as winds pick up a little. So winds picking up then from the west as showers arrive, rain from the south and the east becoming heavier towards dawn, and that's how the weather's shaping up.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock